Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the executive committee to order. Start with approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any additional items they'd like to add to the agenda? Doug?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We had sent a memo to yourself and Dan and Bob, and I know it was probably after the agenda was produced, but we would like to discuss how to think declared interest and voting privileges.
Yep. Okay. So noted. And I'll just mention now that on the agenda, there's a website demo if time allows. The website is out. You can go out in the hall and you can get a tour of it. We won't be doing that here. We absolutely will be taking up the memo sent by Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. Thank you. If no other additions, we'll consider the agenda approved. And then approval of the meeting summary from August 2024. Folks had a chance to look at that. If any issues, not seeing any hands. Okay, we'll consider that approved as well. Look for public comment. Yeah, I don't see too much public here. Good. Okay. All right. So we'll start with moving on to review and consider approval of the fiscal year 24 audit. Go to Laura first.
And thank you. I'm actually going to throw it over to Dan since he's the committee chair.
Thank you. The committee was convened last Friday and we reviewed the audit in at great length and some detail. And with the exception of some minor findings that were toward the back of the document, everything seems to be in order. And Laura, would you like to speak to any of the aspects of it at this time?
No, I wouldn't, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
A motion?
Yeah.
On behalf of the committee, and I guess this doesn't need a second since it was approved by the full committee. Motion to accept the fiscal year 24 audit. Is there any objection to the motion? Seeing none, passed unanimously by consent.
Okay, we're going to do legislative update. Alexander's here with us.
Good deal. Frankly, Congress has not done a whole lot since I last updated all of you. There hasn't been any movement on Huffman's MRIP reform or MRIP bill, MSA reauthorization bill, and I haven't heard of any movement on Representative Graves' MRIP reform bill. We're hoping that the ACE Act, the bill that funds National Fish Habitat Partnership, will be included in some year-end packages. We're also hoping that the State Boating Act will be included in the Coast Guard reauthorization bill. We sent a letter to the Senate Commerce Committee immediately following our last quarterly meeting in support of the State Boating Act. This is the bill that would allow states, should their legislatures approve it, attach fees to vessel licenses for things such as invasive species removal, boater safety programs, stuff like that. Congress has passed a short-term funding bill, which kicks the can down the road until December 20th. It's difficult to determine what passage of the appropriations bills look like after that, given that we have an election coming up in less than 2 weeks. One of the things that happened recently is I flew up to Rhode Island to meet with Congressman Magaziner along with Eric and Jason. It was a productive meeting and we talked about the consolidation of House and Senate differences, some of our priorities in the Senate version of the CJS appropriations bill that did not make it into the House version. And we also discussed the New Jersey CARES Act issue. Talking briefly about New Jersey CARES Act, I know Bob will speak a lot more about it later. I just wanted to thank you all for engaging with me over each quarterly meeting and being willing to go up to the Hill. We've received some really strong support in this kind of time of need of ours, and that wouldn't be possible without you guys going up and engaging with me at each quarterly meeting. So just wanted to say thank you for that.
Thanks. We're gonna quickly cover future annual meetings. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief. Associated with the Hill work is also setting priorities associated with budget requests. During Monday's conversations with the ACCSP Coordinating Committee, we were talking about the split between administrative cost and money going back to the state. Administrative costs are now at 67%. And that's not a dig at ACCSP at all. I don't want to be taken that way because a lot of the work that they're doing is priority work for the states. But I think there's not been an increase in that funding allocation from Congress for many years. So I think we need to consider putting that on the list for priorities for appropriations for future conversations.
Yeah, that sounds fair, Pat. Unless there's any objections, I think I'm happy to do that. Thanks. I apologize. Any other questions for Alexander or comments? We'll move on to a future annual meeting.
Thank you, Joe. So next year, 2025, we're going to be in Delaware. How's that tour of the screen door factory coming, John? We don't have dates yet, but it looks to be the second or the third or fourth week of October. We're looking at Dewey Beach. Want to say anything else, John?
No, don't want to set expectations too high. That's.
Thank you. In 2026, then, we will be in Rhode Island. 2027, South Carolina, 2028, Massachusetts, 2029, Pennsylvania, and 2030 in the great state of Georgia.
Great, thank you, Laura. Sounds exciting. So we're going to move into a closed session. And just for everyone's reference, we mentioned a memo from the southern states that we're going to take up. We're going to start that discussion in our closed session. I think eventually that we'll see where that goes, but end up maybe with XCOM again or eventually with policy board too. So